I'm speaking on this in response to Camilo's take, my partner in crime, on wasted tuition. And he's confused. He's confused about how he feels about, or how he should feel about Rachel Dolezal identifying herself as black. And I want to start off by saying this. The reason why this is a story is because America is making it a story. I don't think that it's that big of a deal. Okay, now everybody has the right to identify themselves as whoever they want to identify themselves as, and nobody else should really have a problem with it. And I don't think that people really would have a problem with it, except for the fact that she's identifying herself as black. The fact that she's identifying herself as black. And I think that that's what makes this an issue. And if it's an issue because of that and that alone, that's a part of the problem. You know, like, I think that this being a story contributes to America being racially divisive, or American culture being racially divisive, and it continuing to be racially divisive. Because the truth of the matter is, at the end of the day, it should not matter. You see, one of the most interesting things about this country and the cities that exist within it, especially major cities where you do have that diversity, you will have somebody that might be of a certain race growing up in an area where there may not be as many of his or her own. Okay, like, for perfect example, I grew up in Jackson Heights, Elmhurst area of Queens in New York, and best believe there's not a lot of us walking around there. Okay, now I stopped short of carrying on like I was Latin, but there are certain things within Latin culture that I was able to, if not adjust to, understand to a given degree. You know, and like, I can order a platter at a Spanish restaurant, and I can read the Spanish off the menu, you know, flawlessly, even if I don't understand what every word means. But that doesn't mean that I think I'm Dominican or Colombian, and nor would I ever claim to. But there are things that, you know, you sort of kind of take on because you're in a certain culture. And it could be that could be the case with Dolezal. Or it could be simply that, you know, then she is enamored with what, you know, she's enamored with what black culture is about, and she feels like, you know, the black experience is something that fascinates her. Now, does she take it to an extreme by identifying herself as black, as far as like the whole race makeover that she kind of did? I'll be on board and say that, okay, it is a little extreme, especially when you're talking about getting a scholarship at Howard University. Like, that's a little extreme, because now you're taking away the opportunity from someone who actually is black. It's a little extreme, and it probably shouldn't have gotten that far, you know. But I do appreciate the fact that she does embrace black culture. Maybe she's embracing it too closely, maybe, but it is her right. Now, for a whole nation to be, to whatever degree, made uncomfortable by the fact that she proclaims herself as black, that she identifies herself as black, that's the bigger problem to me. The fact that it was made such a big issue. Because a lot of people have been saying, since this story broke out, okay, well, or a couple of people have made the comparison to Bruce / Caitlyn Jenner. Okay, he identifies himself as transgender, or I believe it's transgender or whatever. And it's an act of bravery. Now, if that's an act of bravery, where do we look at Dolezal and say, okay, well, she's being ridiculous? It's just like where are the lines being drawn? Where are the measurements being drawn? Where we're saying, okay, well, okay, one person is being fraudulent when it comes to her, you know, personal identification, and the other person's a hero, a trailblazer, if you will. I feel like the rules are kind of written in sand, and it kind of like depends on the day or the weather as to, okay, what is acceptable. If Jenner is brave on some level, maybe not to the same degree. To some degree, she identified herself as black, and the fact that she's doing it, like, you know, maybe forced to, but she's facing a nation and saying that she identifies herself as black, maybe we should look at her as something of a hero, or at least give her credit for being brave enough to stand by her position, you know, because she does relate in the way that she does relate. But again, I don't want to steer too far from the main point. And my main point is, if you are observing this as something that is offensive, then I think that that's part of the problem. I think that's part of the racial divisiveness, part of the racial divisiveness. I can't say divisiveness that continues in this city. It's part of the divisiveness that continues in this culture, and nobody's really shining a light on that. Nobody's shining a light on the fact that this really should not matter. Okay, I mean, like, look, this is the country. Look, a couple of days ago, a week ago, when we got this kid in South Carolina that shot up a church and killed 9 black people that were just going to church, going to service. Okay, now that's a bigger problem, and yes, the media is giving attention to it, but it's the fact that people in this country still look at other races that way and take it to the extreme that they're still doing this now in 2015 is that kind of position that is kind of like right, not exactly along the lines obviously, but it's somewhere in the same ballpark, somewhere in the same realms where people's thoughts on other races, right? People's thoughts on black people, people's thoughts on Asians, people's thoughts on Mexicans. That's what creates the Dolezal story. That's what makes it a story, because at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter. You know, like if I go to a Latin club, say I was a more popular figure than I am, when I'm not popular at all. Let's say I go to Copacabana and I'm just dancing salsa and merengue all night, right? And it's recorded. So is that me letting go of my blackness and embracing Latin culture? No, but best believe it's the kind of thing that can be spun into that. It can be spun into that if you start to play the angles and you start to play spin doctor. And that's the thing. When we start to observe the fact that, you know, saying it shouldn't matter, people have a right to think the way they want to think, and you might want to call them out when they get a little extreme, when we're getting scholarships that we shouldn't get, or when people are getting scholarships that they shouldn't get, or they're identifying themselves as black and, you know, then whatever, just taking it at that position. Sure, we might want to call them out, but we have to respect the fact that, you know what, if that's who she identifies with the most, it's well within her right to do that. Why is everybody bothered by it? That's...
As a black man, are you offended?
Not at all. Not at all. I think that, look, I feel like the black experience is in fact a journey, and it's going to continue to be a journey so long as incidents that seem to be growing these days, like that's the second incident that happened in South Carolina. All right, as long as that's still happening, as long as people take issue with Dolezal, then, you know, all of this contributes to the black experience. But the black experience is something that's taken on different shapes and forms over the course of centuries. The dynamics have taken on so many different levels, and I feel like one white woman who identifies herself as black, I don't think that is even something that impacts the black experience. So why would I be offended? I don't think that it's something where, okay, she's bastardizing what it means to be black. Not at all. I mean, if anything, she's showing an appreciation for the black experience. Maybe too deep in appreciation, what with the hairdos and so on. But if she chose to take it to that length, it's well within her right. Nobody should be bothered. And I mean, not just a few people or some people should reserve the right to be. Nobody should be bothered. I say that as a brother that wears the blackface, and part of it has to do with solidarity, but it also has to do with unity. And if you're really about unity, the story shouldn't matter.
Could she have shown her appreciation and taken her love for the black culture, but still identified herself as a white woman? Did she is it necessary for her to have to come out and say that she's black?
Obviously, she could have shown the same appreciation and embraced black culture the same way as a lily white woman if she so chose, and maybe she would be in better standing in the eyes of millions if she did that. But she didn't. Clearly she felt so strongly that she took it to the degrees. She took it to the degree that she did. And that she did, it's unusual. Let's be fair and practical about it. It's very unusual. It's very unusual. But it's well within her right. And I don't see where, you know, I can see Black America taking a look at this situation and saying, okay, well, you know what? I've gone through this as a black man. I've gone through this as a black woman. You know, I mean, I wasn't getting hosed in the 60s like with water while protesting. I didn't get unlawfully arrested back in the days, you know, back in Jim Crow days and all of the things that took place during the civil rights movement where black people suffered far different fates. I didn't go through that. You know what I'm saying? The black people before me went through that. But I've gone through my share of racial hatred. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, I've been on this earth 39 years, man. Like, I've been a victim of racism on numerous accounts. Now, I can't, as a black man, say, okay, well, fuck Rachel Dolezal because she doesn't know what it's like to be full-on black and go through the whole black experience the way I or other black men and women have had to go through it. You know, she doesn't know what it's like to have a relative shot just for going to church. She doesn't know what that's like. Granted, she doesn't. But it could very well be that she respects the fact that she knows that that is something that happens within black culture. Like, that blacks are exposed to that kind of hatred, to that kind of racism, to that kind of profiling. Again, did she take it to an extreme? She damn sure did. But it's within her right to do so. I mean, and if she did violate as far as a scholarship is concerned, then slap her on the hand for that. If she wants to identify with an elder black man and identifies with her and considers him her father, people do that all the time. People do that all the time. People, they kind of shun their biological parents for whatever reason, and there'll be some other older person that they relate to, that they look up to, that, you know, that they seek for fatherly advice or motherly advice. That happens all the time. Like, why is it any different because, okay, she identifies herself as a black person and the person that she sees as a father figure is black? Why does it matter? Why should it matter? It matters because people are making it matter. There are bigger issues in the world. And if we really are about any kind of unity, then this is not a story. So when this becomes a story, it kind of sends the message to me that, yo, we really aren't united as a nation, which is probably not news. But when I see a story like the Dolezal story come to the forefront the way it does, I think that the underlying message is we are not united because we're bothered by the fact that some white lady is pretending to be black or is claiming to be black. I mean, if anything, the response in my eyes should be, well, good for you. I think it's strange, but okay. And then you get on with your day. That's about all I have to say on it. Chris Keys, Wasted Tuition.